What's up guys, Taylor here coming to you with a lesson on what I am calling a party trick. This is part 2 of this lesson series and you can find part 1 linked in the description below this video. You don't need to watch part 1 before this lesson though, you can watch them in any order. So this is all about being able to pick up your guitar and just sound cool and not have to do anything super crazy complicated, but just get some really beautiful sounds out of your guitar so that if you're hanging out with friends and family, you can pick that thing up. You can have a couple little party tricks up your sleeve so that you can sound awesome and play some beautiful music for them. So this is going to be a really fun lesson. We're going to learn a little bit about how to create major scales, and then I'm going to show you how to make that sound really beautiful, and you're going to be able to move up and down the entire neck. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive in and start learning this. All right, so let's start right here on the 2nd fret of the D string. And I'd recommend you start with your 2nd finger. And what we're going to do is we're going to build a major scale off that note. So that is an E note, and we're going to end up building an E major scale. It's going to sound like this. All right, so nice and pretty. And to understand how to build that scale, we have to understand this little formula of whole steps and half steps. And if you've never heard of whole steps and half steps before, it's really, really simple. Basically, a whole step on the guitar is just a movement of 2 frets. And a half step is a movement of 1 fret. So if I start on the 2nd fret of the D string and I move up to the 4th fret, that's a whole step because I move 2 frets. If I start on the 2nd fret and move up to the 3rd fret, that's what's called a half step because I moved up 1 fret. All right, so we're just going to follow this little formula, and I'll put it on screen for you. It's whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and that's how we create a scale. So let's start right here again, 2nd fret of D. Our first movement is a whole step, so that means we're going to move up to the 4th fret of D for the next note of this scale. Our next movement from there is also a whole step, so we can move from the 4th fret to the 6th fret. Except instead of playing that note on the D string, I'm actually going to have you move it to the G string. So that same note can be found on the G string 1st fret. I just want to illustrate that it's the same movement. It's a whole step movement. All right, so instead of moving up the D string more, we're going to switch over to the G string to continue our scale. You'll see why. It's going to make it easier for you. But just understand that that's still a whole step movement right there. So far we have our starting note, 2nd fret of the D string. We have a whole step moving to the 4th fret. And we have a whole step moving to the 1st fret of G. We're following our little major scale formula here. Now we've got a half step, so we're going to move up to the 2nd fret of G. And now we're just going to keep going up the G string here. So next we got a whole step. We're going to move from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret. And then another whole step. We're going to move from the 4th fret to the 6th fret. And another whole step. We're going to move from the 6th fret to the 8th fret. And then we're going to end with a half step, moving up 1 fret to the 9th fret. Now you can actually keep going up further up the neck. I'll explain that in just a minute here, but once we get to that 9th fret of G, that completes the scale. So if we started on 2nd fret of D and we play through all those notes, so you have a nice major scale and it resolves nicely back to an E note where we started. All right, so now let's go ahead and start making this actually sound cool. So there's your major scale. And now what we're going to do to get this sounding awesome is we're basically going to just add in the B string and the open E string. And we're going to pick notes individually as we move through the scale. So basically what you can do is start on the 2nd fret of D, and then just pick the open B string and open E string along with that. So we're just going to play whatever the note of the scale is, plus the B string and E string, all right? So let's move through that same scale, but let's add that open B and open E after each note. So we got D string, 2nd fret to start. And we're going to pick that open B and open E string right after that. And then we're going to move to the next note of the scale. And we're going to pick that open B and open E string right after that. We're going to move to the 3rd note of the scale. And then we're going to pick that open B and open E string right after that, right? So you get the idea. So we're playing each note of the scale, followed by the open B and open E string. Okay, now if you put that together, it starts to sound really cool. All right, so just right there, with just knowing a scale and then adding on the open B and E string to pick the notes individually, you have a really cool sounding kind of party trick here, where you can move up and down the neck and get a really cool sound out of this. And you could even keep going up higher on the neck. So remember, we ended with the 9th fret of the G string. You could just continue following that major scale formula. So if you wanted to keep going higher up the neck, your next movement would be another whole step. So we're restarting here. We're restarting our formula because this note brought us full circle. So now we do another whole step, another whole step, a half step, a whole step, a whole step. Now eventually you're going to run out of room, but of course you can just continue that formula up the neck. So now you've unlocked all these frets up here that you can play with as well. So you can get some really cool combinations going. You can also experiment with some slightly more advanced picking patterns. All right, and let me show you how to also strum this. So maybe if you want to actually just strum it, you can do that as well if you don't want to do all of that crazy picking stuff. So basically what you would do is you could strum pretty much any of those notes of the scale. You just have to make a couple quick changes on the first 2 notes. So if you want to strum this, start with that same starting note, the 2nd fret of D. And if you want to strum that, you just have to add one more note in here so that it sounds good. So you'll also be holding the 1st fret of G. So now if you strum from the D string up, that has a really nice pretty sound to it. And for that 2nd note, we're just going to add in a little something else as well. So we're going to have the 4th fret of D as our note of the scale, and then add in the 2nd fret of G back here to strum it. And you get a really pretty sound from there. And those are the only 2 notes where you have to kind of add an extra finger. Those first 2 notes. But now as you continue moving up the scale, starting from the G string 1st fret, you can just strum from the G string up to the high E. So just a quick recap on what we did there. We built a scale following a formula of whole steps and half steps. That scale ended up being 2nd fret D, 4th fret D, 1st fret G, 2nd fret G, 4th fret G, 6th fret G, 8th fret G, and 9th fret of G. Now you can also keep going past that if you want by continuing the formula. But once you have that scale, you can add the open B and open E string along with the scale note, and you can start picking some really pretty sounding patterns. You could put those notes in any order you like as well. You can also strum with that scale. You just have to make a couple quick exceptions on the first two notes. You have to hold the D string 2nd fret as well as the G string 1st fret to strum. And then for our 2nd note, we have to hold the D string 4th fret as well as the G string 2nd fret to strum. So you just have to change those first two notes a tiny bit, and then the rest can be the same. Then you could just use one finger to continue moving up that scale. You could strum. And you can sound awesome. Well, there you have it, guys. There's a cool little party trick for you based on the notes of an E major scale. Hopefully you learned a little something about how scales are built in this lesson as well. And you can now use that scale along with picking some open strings to move up and down the neck and sound really beautiful on your guitar, basically only using 1 or 2 fingers at a time. So that is a really great party trick to kind of have up your sleeve there, so you can grab your guitar and sound awesome when you're hanging out with friends and family. Do me a favor, guys, if you got value out of this video, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps support the channel, and I truly do appreciate that. You can also grab your free PDF in the link in the description below this video, and I have tabbed out how to play this little party trick for you so that you can print it out, keep practicing, and that PDF is absolutely free. Also, if you need any help with your guitar playing, you can check out the link in the description for guitar building blocks, where we learn the 7 fundamentals of playing guitar, and we use the power of muscle memory to learn fast and get great results. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.